Come on in, wherever you are, whenever you are. Hope all is well in your time zone, and if not today, that it will be. We're pulling straight from the Lair archives in our S.H.I.E.L.D database today for Marvel Rivals. Coming up first, Anthony Stark, the Iron Man. Definitely can say I'm having fun with this character, as with all of the characters, to be honest. Iron Man is a ranged duelist, which is Marvel Rivals categorization for the DPS class. Lower health, high offensive capabilities. And Iron Man obviously definitely fits that bill quite easily. So, what we're going to do is we're going to get into these abilities. We're going to break them down, give overall thoughts, our tips for starting out, specifically newer players, to help prep the player base and any prospecting players or just curious about the characters and their kits. And then we're going to have some gameplay as a bit of a reference to the breakdown. And all of this information is very liable to change. We'll update the database with new videos accordingly as needed. Now, this gameplay will showcase the characters and their kits in the entirety within reason, and the general idea given during the breakdown. And although the level of play will be marginally high, it will not be indicative for the most part in any way of the highest level of pro play. We're quite a ways out for any type of content, at least from this channel. Also, slight complication during the capture, so the first minute and last minute are missing. We did end up pushing it back and getting the win. Nevertheless, let's get into it and let's pull up this file. So, starting off, we have Iron Man's basic, which is going to be his repulsor blast. Comes with a decent amount of ammo and actually ridiculous damage. Specifically considering, as you can see, the AoE capabilities of the skill. It's actually probably one of the more important things that I can stress as far as Iron Man. You'll see when we get to the gameplay, comparatively versus Storm, who's another duelist range flying character. You don't have to actually place your shots with Iron Man. You'll just be lobbing shots from virtually any distance into the enemy's backline, flanking wherever it may be at them, and not necessarily on target. You'll be rewarded. Again, it does significantly decent damage. So you'll really be able to poke, as they like to say, in the shooting game space. It's provided that you pick your targets accordingly. Up next, we got Unibeam. Now, what I would say about Unibeam, when the move hits, it's actually amazing, right? As you can see in the video, the damage is definitely something to write home about. So you're effectively able to help focus fire key targets, tanks, especially like when you're above them and they're down there dealing with the people that are on the ground, and they're not even paying any mind that you're above them. Do this and really get some damage on them, especially like your Hulks, ones that have to really try to get up out of there. Anyone trying to flank, you can, especially usually flankers are probably getting in close. This is amazing for getting people off of you, i.e. your Spider-Mans and your Black Panthers, who will pop up at the drop of a dime and have to get in to get those melee hits off. This right here will typically probably make those players disengage or think about disengaging unless they believe that they have a assured way to really get you out of there. Just probably usually an ult or something. The downside is, unlike lasers and the real Unibeam, this appears to be a ray. What's up, people? This is the editor from Universe 44. Gotta apologize. Sometimes main universe me drinks his tea when it's not at the perfect temperature. It is a line, and I meant that it should be a ray, but instead of a line. So as you'll see when we get to the gameplay here in a second, there is times where you should be hitting the person and it just doesn't. Don't know if it's a hit registration thing or an optimization thing 100%, but definitely something that probably should be. I think it's just because it doesn't go all the way. Like, it's not a line. I don't think it literally, like, it's a ray, it has a stopping point. They probably should rework it and just make it a line and rework it, maybe increase the amount of ammo that it takes to share the ammo with the primary or something. I don't know, but the skill is great, specifically in your close range. To throw this tidbit in there as well, it doesn't have it in here, but he, like all the other ranged characters, has a melee, and it's also really good, especially combined with the Unibeam. It's probably comparable to Magneto's melee. Nevertheless, up next we got his ultimate, Invincible Pulse Cannon. More or less self-explanatory, you know, based upon the video that you're seeing here. It's a ranged ability with extreme damage capabilities. You're gonna wanna launch this when your enemy team is grouping up or to take out key targets. Don't be afraid to drop this on the two supports that are probably hip to hip in the back. That's where the use of this ultimate. Pop that back line. You're gonna see the times that I use it in the gameplay footage for this showcase that well. I don't think there's only one time I dropped it and only got one kill, but that's fine too if it's a target that for example you just can't beat. But pretty self-explanatory. Has ridiculous range, like all the ults in the game. It's pretty noticeable when you're about to fire it off because they shout it across the entirety of the map, but it comes out just as fast as you see here, so it's a bit harder to get out of the way in comparison to some of the other ultimates, at least. It's also kind of hard to shoot him out of this ultimate. You can, like pretty much every other ult, be shot out of this ult, but it comes out so quick that usually you'll probably trade or something. But not too much to really say on this one, or a tip for this one, other than you want to save this for obviously key moments in the match, but as well to, for example, reset their backline, take out their supports. If in a lot of cases, which you'll probably run into, they're only running one support, that's still not bad. Pop their one support and one of their damage, you've completely tilted the match better into your team's favor because they were only running one support and really rising off the back of probably their damage dealers, or at least the damage that their team is dealing to compensate for that. So yeah, not a lot here. This is pretty self-explanatory. You pop it, you aim, and you get a bunch of kills. Alright, up next we got his movement skill, Hyper Velocity. You pop this, it turns into a full-blown sprint. This is what sets him several leagues above Storm. Not to take anything from my girl Storm, I had time of my life playing with Storm. Her damage is also something to consider, but this move right here allows you to not be as much of a sitting duck in the air when the opposing team gets tired of you doing your thing and they all start to focus fire you. You can use this ability, at least at this point in the alpha, you can use this ability to 180. So meaning that, for example, on mouse and keyboard, assuming you have normal key bindings, S and this skill, which is left shift, will see you sprint backwards, flip the camera and take you into this sprint position going the opposite way you're facing. For controllers, obviously that's holding the movement stick back and using whichever button you have this ability binded to. It'll flip the camera 180 and allow you to quickly get into sprint. Won't always necessarily guarantee that you won't just get that bit of damage to take you out, knock you out of the sky before that, but definitely something to be considered. It also can be used left and right. It'll simply flip the camera, and more or less you kind of take off fairly quickly. Bit of a startup lag on the opening animation, but either way, you want to be using this when either someone, for example, a Hela or a Scarlet Witch, anyone that can dump skills with extreme amount of damage across a long range, like yourself, maybe a Storm or something. Yeah, you want to quickly maneuver. Strafing back and forth is one thing, and effective, you're a pretty hard target to hit in the air, as far as Storm and Iron Man, but this kind of just takes it to the next level, obviously, for repositioning pop off an alt, use this to reposition, catch someone you see flanking. All type of applications to this skill right here. It's kind of what sets him, I would say, if we're gonna do tier lists this early, it sets him up a bit higher tier than even debatably Storm. Although again, I think she is extremely strong in all of her own rights and categories. But this move also, yeah, not too much really to say about this one, other than it's a get up out of their card when, for example, your team falls or maybe your tank falls for whatever amount of reasons. The opposing team decides to start focus firing, and this is your ticket to reposition, ticket to get out of there, or again cut people off that you see trying to escape or trying to flanking yourself. Obviously, there would be an example of this in the gameplay a bit later, where we use this to I typically use this to try to get in and fire off my missile barrage, which we'll get to here in a second. You can tap this, go into your sprint real quick, pop off your missiles, let the button go, and go back into firing repulsors, in a hovering state, or pop your overdrive, which we're about to get to next. But other than that, just a skill that thoroughly sets Iron Man apart. I'd say it's the difference between, obviously aerial characters have total aerial maneuverability in comparison to, for example, other damage dealers that have floats. Several of the other damage dealers and just characters in general have floats. Rocket, Magneto, Scarlet Witch. The Flyers obviously have total air maneuverability, but this move right here gives Iron Man complete air mastery. So definitely don't forget to use this. It's on a stamina-like cooldown instead of your standard cooldown, and as you can see on the side, it fills up really quickly the moment that you stop using it. So do not be afraid to use this in position. Use it as a strafing technique if need be, to really make sure that you're maximizing and getting the most to help your team. Again, these tips are even for you starting off. This is your get out of jail free card until you really get a grip on this character, or again, just to make even better pushes. Getting to OBJs after a team wipe and helping maybe keep the opposing team off the open air, helping slow down the payload, all things of that nature. Either way, moving on. We got Armor Overdrive. This here is going to be your buff. This is going to be your best friend here as Iron Man, probably short of your dash that we were just talking about. You pop this, it's going to, first and foremost, as buffs tend to do, increase the effectiveness of your abilities. It's also going to give you the ability to launch the next skill we're about to get into here, the Missile Barrage, without needing to be in your thrusters like sprint state, although you do also still have access to it, as you can see right there. But what you're going to want to do is, when this is off of cooldown, is use it. The cooldown is more than fair. Use it. Unless you're completely by yourself and there isn't an enemy in sight, you probably want to have Armor Overdrive. Now, maybe not at the beginning of your engagement, with whoever you're fighting, especially if it's one-on-one. Sure, especially depending on who it is, and if it's not a flyer, if it's not another Iron Man or a Storm, and if it's not, for example, someone with floats and dashes, or Scarlet Witch, who doesn't actually have to touch the ground, although she can't truly fly, she can keep cycling through her floats and dash to actually never touch the ground. But short of people like that, you don't necessarily have to go into every engagement with this, but anytime that there is an engagement with multiple opponents, you want to definitely be getting this skill off. I really just can't stress how good and how important this skill is, especially when combined with his passive, or his team-up ability, should I say, his passive team-up ability with the Hulk, which further increases the damage of this. But I just can't tell you, you'll see when we get to the gameplay, but how good the Missile Barrage from the aiming standpoint is. It's just so much better and safer, obviously, than the normal dash. You can throw it in, as you can see here, you just throw it in with your attacks. Most likely you'll be lobbing repulsor blasts on top of the missiles. They cover a nice area. We'll get more into the missiles and why how good the missiles are here in a second. But this buff though, yeah, you want to have this buff up at all times. It actively makes your unibeam even better, which is nuts because it already again does significant damage. Does it, for example, increase the range? As far as I know, it should. Maybe that is, for example, how they could solve that when you pop armor overdrive, make it a line instead of a ray. But yeah, you want to have this. You want to make sure that you're in this buff, especially in any engagement that's over 2 people. Again, the cooldown is more than fair enough. 18 seconds sounds like a lot to hold, but you're a lot of pulsar blasts in there, dashing, thrusters. You're still getting off your normal, missile barrages with the sprint. It goes by extremely quickly. So, coming up next, we got the micro missile barrage. We pretty much touched on this in the last 2 skills. You are initially going to have access to this skill from your hyper velocity boosted flight state. It's going to usually launch the missiles down, although I've noticed they've got quite a nice amount of tracking on them. I've seen them even there, you can see they don't necessarily go down, they will go in the direction of the enemies that are near when the skill goes off. So paying attention to grouped up enemies that are at varying levels in the terrain, some on the ground, some higher up, you can really maximize your potential with this skill and get damage across several different targets that aren't all necessarily directly shoulder to shoulder. Probably going to want to use this skill when your team and the opposing team are locked into a fight, probably closer range to each other, so that by the time anyone notices that you're flying above them, it's much too late. Again, you're going to throw these down and they're going to get some damage out in a wide area. As we mentioned in overdrive, you also are going to have access to this after you pop your overdrive, as you can see right here from the aiming standpoint, which will allow you to then direct the missiles more comparatively, sprinting in and getting close up on to your targets into the danger zone and helping guide the missiles more to their targets with proximity. You're going to be able to just aim and really focus fire this skill. Also, as I mentioned, you have access to both of these while overdrive is active in your aimed and boosted flight state. So you're actually able to, as you see here, you can just boost. It does the buff afterwards, but yes, you can use your hyper velocity to boost it and get some rockets off. And if you haven't already popped your buff, you can then pop your buff, and then you're able to launch another set of missiles, more directed, on top of all your other skills with the buff that you got going on. So, like I said, we kind of touched on this in the last 2, but this is your probably second best friend. I would say probably above you to be again until they get a bit of a change and make it a bit more fire buff for actually hitting targets at longer range. But these missiles, the cooldown is also really good too. As you can see, it's about 12 or so seconds, but as you saw, it immediately resets when he pops his overdrive. So even at 12 seconds, this is an extremely good skill to use. Overdrive is the best time to use it, but don't be afraid to sprint in and use it as well. That's it for Iron Man's regular abilities. We move on to his team-up abilities. This game has certain abilities that are awarded depending upon the characters that you pick, the team comps that you build. So in Iron Man's case, that's going to be the Gamma Overdrive. These skills also come in 2 flavors, passive ones and ones that have to be activated. This is a passive one, meaning that you, nor Hulk, or Doctor Strange, because he also gains the same buff, have to think about anything. You pick these characters and it is in just a buff that's there. It's just an innate buff that's applied because the characters that you pick, it's going to give you increased damage while in your armor overdrive, which is going to stack on top of the fact that it is a buff. And again, like I said, it's not something that you have to press a button for to activate like Rocket Raccoon and Punisher, or Magneto, for example. You don't gain an extra skill from this team up, but extra damage is always nice. Then we move into the suggested combo, which we pretty much kind of go through with this breakdown in of itself. Dash in, get your missiles off, pop your overdrive buff, all around cause havoc, reposition with your hyper velocity sprint, pick your targets accordingly, really help your team pester key targets such as tanks, usually specifically, or anybody trying to flank. Don't rush in without your team. You can, I do use the hyper velocities you're about to see here in a second to return from respawning quickly, but don't run off without your team, obviously. Other than that, stay I would say probably try to stay in between your tank and your support, unless you're kind of like by yourself, making a push by yourself. But other than that, that's kind of it. Staying agile as much as flyers do. Try to take as least the little amount of damage as possible while making sure you can still be healed by your healers. And again, just picking on certain targets, harassing targets because you have AoEs on your primaries, things of that nature. Just more or less being a hassle for the other team, securing certain kills. But with that said, we're going to get into this gameplay here. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you. I want to say again, wherever you are, whenever you are, I appreciate it.
Yeah, Magneto!
I need assistance. We need to get the band together.
I'm back.
They hit a checkpoint. Now might be a good time to stop them.
Powering up.
They are coming from behind.
Anyone say fireworks? Enemy in front of us.
Now or never. Stop them. Chin up.
Maximum pulse. Pulse cannons and arguments.
Stop them in their tracks.
Powering up. Anyone say fireworks? Bombs away. Get in there.
He stopped them in their tracks.
Behold! I'm gonna find whoever put me out last time. Get in there. Powering up.
Your powers are mine!
Shanti's power.
Please need to be helpful.
By the eye
Here.
I am ready to put on a show.
Look out below. Powering up. Bombs away. Enemies on approach.
You don't have to fight alone.
I'm hulking out! Maximum push!
Stop them in their tracks! You needed some help,
I
didn't
still need you.
you?
Look out below!
Friends, gather around!
Powering up! Bombs away! Rockets! Consider yourself gone. Triumph again! I'm gonna find whoever put me out last time.
You stop them in their tracks!
By the eye of Agamotto!
Get in there! Anyone say silence to the Shanti's power! The Vishanti guide me! Yeah, I hold grudges. Feeling good again. Get in there. Rockets!
We are undefeatable!
Drown them!
I'm hulking out!
I will not break!
Bring on the
Behold, S.H.I.E.L.D!
We are through!
Powering up! Maximum